All right, good morning and welcome back to the Game Dev Show, everybody. I'm here today with Andrew, Powell, Greg, and Will. We're going to be talking about a couple new announcements, some things that were just released, and if Story hops in, we might be talking a little bit about his AI image generation adventures as well. I don't know if he's going to be here, but it looks kind of interesting. So good morning, welcome everybody. How you guys doing today?
Oh, that's me.
Doing good.
My
Looks
sound is on.
Yeah, mine too.
Oh, on the stream?
Yeah, I had to mute it real quick.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time. So there's a bunch of big stuff going on this week, a couple really big announcements. I've got one I want to share in a little bit, but before we get to that, I wanted to start with Andrew's big announcement, which was the release of Andrew's new projectile system. You want to tell everybody what that is while I calm this dog down, Andrew?
Yes, the Projectile Factory is a behavior-based projectile system that essentially lets you. I'm on my OBS now, so I should just bring this over here and just press play and show you. So basically, it's a behavior-based projectile system, allowing you to unify your projectiles into one system and then mix and match and do the behaviors based on just behavior objects that you can bring in and out, rather than having to set up individual projectiles. So like this one, rather, not that one. This one will chase things just because it has a homing behavior on that. So we can quickly see that by going to our projectile actor here in our inspector. I'll turn off this, and then we can see that they've got these projectiles right here, and this projectile arcane missile has these behaviors, and these are the magical behaviors. So you can just add new behaviors in. You can search for all your different behaviors. You can create new behaviors. You can script entirely new behaviors that are very specific to your game, and just replace things to create brand new projectiles. So behavior-based projectile system works with every projectile in the history of the world. And yeah, it makes it just very easy to use them in a game versus, versus
Having to code them all yourself.
Yeah, that versus having to code all of them yourself. And that's the big thing that got me when I first started making this. I was a little unhappy with the amount of boilerplate code that some of these particles came with, to the point where either you had two choices if you wanted to use them. You could either recreate the particles effects from scratch, meaning take their component pieces, figure out how they were meant to go together, and then recreate that with your own scripts, or take their scripts and redo their scripts so that they actually are extensible and can be used in an actual project. Pavel in particular was well aware of my complaining one night, spending 5 hours doing that with one package. It looked great in the end, and now you can just drag things over and use them with any character or object that spews out projectiles. It works perfectly in every single situation now. But it took 5 hours of refactoring code to redo essentially scripts that weren't made by a developer. They were made for a demo scene specifically, and they were very much hard-coded. The names of the projectiles were in the scripts. Like, you couldn't change the name of the projectile game object. That would break the script. So yeah, but hey, this makes everyone's life better. So
nice. They kind of solved that and made it work with all of the different projectile particles, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there are 6 integrations with popular particle packages that, if you happen to have the particle package, which most likely, if you've been buying stuff from the asset store and mega bundles and whatnot, you probably have a few of them. If you've got those and you got Projectile Factory, bring in the integration, and you have projectiles that are just ready to go. You can
sweet,
drag them and drop them. I did this on the stream last night because the whole point of this, I made this for my own game, Legend of the Stones. So last night in my little party stream, I brought it into Legend of the Stones. We have Flying Eye, which, Jason, you've got Flying Eye in your game that you're working on.
I certainly do.
And so I put a projectile spawner on the Flying Eye. I brought the projectile over, wrote the code that says if it sees the player, every 1 second, fire a projectile, and it just worked. And the projectiles just fired, and that was it. That was all it was. Just a few steps, and that's the promise of this system. So hopefully other people will find that valuable as well.
Nice. I'm sure lots of people will. They want to get in and do projectiles. It's one of the first things I feel like people put in the game after they start running around and they want to shoot stuff. And projectiles are a big part of that. So it's interesting and pretty cool that you put that together for everybody. I put the link in there. We'll put it in the description as well so everybody can check it out.
That's not the best part of it, though.
What's the best part?
The music video.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I'm pretty sure this is the first asset in the history of the world for Unity that has its own theme song.
It might be. Now, there was a question, does it include lock-on features? So homing projectiles, that's in there, right?
There is a behavior there's behaviors that will follow a target. So you can switch the target, you can it'll inherit the target that the spawner has. So if your player has a targeting system, it'll inherit that target. But you can also change the target at runtime. So you could do an entire matrix thing where all the projectiles suddenly stop, change target, and then follow that new target back to whoever spawned it. So you could do lots of things with that. So the behaviors are where this comes into play. The one I showed there, the homing it's a lock-on target. Basically, it homes in on the target. You could make it also there's a look at target behavior as well, so that instead of just homing in, which has a max angle, meaning if it's going fast enough it can just fly around the target because it's too fast and can't turn, but you can do a look at one where it's just constantly looking at the target. No matter where the target goes, it'll look at it and that'll go straight to the target. And then there's also like a behavior that will attach it to the target. So once it hits the target, it will parent itself to that target, like a sticky bomb. This was a request from one of the lovely viewers on a stream. They're like, oh, does it have a sticky bomb? So I quickly wrote a thing that says literally on collision enter, parent to the object you collide with. So now there's a sticky bomb thing. And so how the projectiles actually act is based on this number of behaviors that you add together. And the only difference between a sticky bomb and a non-sticky bomb is that one behavior. Does it, add that one behavior and now it attaches to it and everything else stays the same. So you can just mix and match things and then literally when you want to create a new one, it's you just override one method and your new behavior scripts are one method. If you want to get complex, you can make them longer, but they most of them are just one method where they override on collision.
You just create a new behavior, override that one thing and add it in. Nice.
Yep. And then it shows up in your list and you can the variables are exposed in the inspector, so you don't even have to leave the projectile inspector to change the behavior details, even though you're editing the details is on a different object entirely. So it should be very easy to use.
Nice
for folks too. Yeah,
speed people up a lot. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I use assets, to get all this stuff kind of done and working as quick as possible. I've got a ton in my game right now, so I'll talk a little bit more about those later. Greg, what's going on with you, man?
Well, I am working still on my math game for Legends of Learning. I pretty much have the gameplay from beginning to end done. I'm working on a screen to allow the players. So for those that don't know, it's a math game with basic multiplication and division for like 8 to 11-year-olds. So I'm working on a screen to review the problems they got wrong. And the game features what they call fact families. So, A times B equals C can also be B times A equals C, or C divided by A equals B, or C divided by B equals A. So the review screen is going to arrange the problems they've missed into the fact family that puts the question mark on the right side of the equation to show them, because that's much easier to solve if the question mark's on the right side of the equation.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I'm working on now. And after that, it's just going to be a lot of testing and optimization. And I think I mentioned before that the entire uncompressed build size has to be less than 30 megabytes. So
yeah, see, I know you had to keep it down. That's why you went back to built-in, right?
Yeah, I got rid of the URP and went back to built-in. And so far, I'm still under 30 megabytes. So, and I've been adding some additional sound and music and stuff. And so that's the challenging thing. I can't really have a music clip that's longer than like 30 seconds because it starts to blow up.
You make some MIDI files instead, right? Something nice and tiny. That's funny. 30 megabytes. I think like I was looking at my project last night and I've shrunk it down to 50 gigs. Right? I was like, oh yeah, it's actually way smaller than I thought. I shrunk it. It's only 50 gigs, and the build is only a little over 2 gigs, and it's up on Steam too. So I got that all working. Hopefully, you guys were all able to grab it with one of the codes. All right, now Will's been sitting down there in the corner quietly, and I want to jump over to him now because it's first time on the show. Really excited to have you here. You want to tell everybody what it is you're working on?
Yeah, I can talk about it. So, I mean, some people will say, "Oh, are you going to come and talk about Unity?" Not really. I talk about it a lot. I talk about it on Twitter all the time, and people can ask about that if they want to. We can talk about Unity. I'm working on a game with my friend Sean. Shout out to Sean Peoples, aka Durham Games. And we're making a stealth survival game in Unity in HDRP, and it's based around a story about at the moment, you know how things change, right? At the moment, it's a stealth game. It's going to end up being a 2D match game.
Yes, it's now a first-person shooter and an RTS.
Yeah, exactly. It turned out to be a haiku game. No, so at the moment we're trying to build this world which. I guess I'm kind of inspired by games like Inside, where you've kind of got a lot of incidental storytelling in the background, but you don't really explicitly ever get told what's happening in this weird environment that you're in. So I started out with this prototype. It's been 2 years actually, a couple of years ago, where I'd taken the third person starter assets thing that Unity shipped, because I don't want to make a character. I just wanted to grab a character. And the mechanic I wanted to test out was a flaming torch that diminished over time. And so we started with this idea that you'd have to kind of add more fire to see where you're going to navigate and to solve all these puzzles. And I just made a kind of a character mangling game with all sorts of gruesome traps and things. And then now bringing Sean on board, it was really nice. I've known Sean in the community since I think we met at Unite Vancouver, if anybody remembers that. Was that like 2015, something like that?
A long time ago.
That venue, I remember there was like a Lego whale outside made out of like voxel whale. Like if anybody remembers this weird place. Anyway, met Sean back then, and then he started working at Unity a couple of years ago, or maybe less than that. But I just reached out to him at the start of the year, and he said, "Oh, how are your holidays?" And I said, "Yeah, great. I'm working on this game." And he said, "What is it?" And he said, "I'll work on it." And I'm like, "Oh yes, a real programmer." I'm not a real programmer. I'm a really crappy programmer, which he soon learned as he was refactoring lots of my terrible mistakes. But we're having a really good time, and it's proving to be one of those things where you kind of get a bit obsessed with details. And so I've been relearning all of our systems. Like I spent 4 hours the other night just perfecting hands as the guy picks up and moves a barrel around, like animation rigging and all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
You get kind of obsessive about like, well, the hand's not quite oriented right there, so you have to move things around. But yeah, having loads of fun with it. And it's been really nice to have a collaborator. Like I said, I've been working on it for a couple of years. And I think you guys know this pretty well, when you're a solo dev, it can be really challenging to motivate yourself. Even showing builds to friends and stuff was nice, but it wasn't like, let's bounce the ideas back and forth. Whereas with Sean in that now, it's really, really good fun.
Yeah, you've got another head there to talk about and go over all the ideas and kind of brainstorm with.
Yeah,
you didn't have Chat GPT the whole time, huh? As your co-developer.
I'm going to be honest with you. Before the start of the year, I was working on another idea, which is why Andrew's projectile pack's really exciting for me, because people love a side project.
Of course.
I had this other game I was working on a few years ago, which was like a tile-based game where you were these robots who would fire sticky bombs. And you fire them, and they were like bombs a la kind of Bomberman style, but they bounced around, and then you could press fire again, and it would stick them to the ground. It's a really satisfying mechanic, but I kind of never got anywhere with that prototype. So I might be looking at Andrew's pack and thinking, yeah, I'll do 2 projects at once. Why not? I'm an idiot.
Only 2?
Yeah, exactly. Lazy, right?
Yeah, only 2 projects and a job. You need at least a couple more jobs and maybe a company or 2 on the side.
Yeah, and a family, and probably some friends.
Yeah.
Friends are useless. What are you talking about? Just projects and jobs. Now, that's awesome. So the game that you're working on now, does it have a final name and a page or a presence people can go check it out yet? Or
that's the thing. There's no presence yet. We've set ourselves a date, which is like getting a vertical slice demo for next GDC. So we think we're well on our way to the first sort of representative level, working pretty well. But yeah, I'm not ready to kind of.
Not ready to put it out there in front of people?
Yeah.
It's called Barry Pickles Private Eye, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is because when we got on the call earlier and they asked me, are you what's your, are you here as Unity? Are you here as yourself? What's going on? And I said I was here as Barry Pickles, private investigator who'd joined the game dev industry to investigate a ring of, But anyway, it's not actually true.
You need to change your name in Restream is the problem. Now everybody's not going to know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I should do that. But yeah, I'm kind of in two minds because Sean, he lived in North Carolina. He's coming over to the UK on Sunday, and I made a poster for the game as kind of like motivation to give him as a gift. And it's sat over there, and I'm like, do I show it because it's such a fun thing and I'm really excited about it? But I'm not. I'm going to resist the urge to do that. Because I want to kind of, what it's like. You're promoting yourself. You want to get everything together, and maybe the name will change. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm excited to see it when it's ready and get in and do some sneak peek testing and stuff. And
I'll send you guys a build. I'm ready to share.
It's a PC game.
Yeah, PC.
Andrew, it was just complaining in chat.
It works on Mac if you like heat.
Yeah, I don't mind.
In other words, it's completely unoptimized.
Yeah, I don't like being cold, so anything. I got solar, so electricity's free.
Oh, maybe I'll make you a Mac build too, Andrew.
I could totally make you a Mac build. I'm just being lazy.
I'm not sure I can. I have to dig up an old Mac somewhere and see if I got one.
Fine.
Or use cloud build.
I can load up. The PC of mine is the hottest machine I have, though. That thing gets hot.
Because it has a video card in it.
Yeah, it's not like the hardware is just not optimized. It's just power all the way through, I suppose. So.
Oh, it's the hardware's fault.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not anything we did. Yeah, cool.
Oh, that is cool. And then, Pal, what's going on over there? What's new with Nature Manufacture?
We are making some small updates to the castle and working on the coast asset and the RAM 2024. But we are still deciding if it will be RAM 3 or RAM 2024.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So lots of maths, lots of calculating strange equations and things similar to that.
Oh, interesting. That shit confuses the hell out of me, but it looks beautiful. So I started playing around with your lava and castle packs again earlier this week too, just trying to figure it out. I'm still really, really bad at making anything look good. I'm really good at making your levels look bad though. If you need somebody to do that ever, like I can go in and completely fuck up a terrain and make it look horrible. Pretty quickly too. But I'm trying to figure this out. So yeah, one of the things I was trying to do for the game, I'll talk a little bit about that now, is come up with the environment for it. So I sent it in chat, and I don't know, everybody in here at least probably should have found a code. I finally got the game up on Steam, and it's not in a good state at all, but it does work. It's playable. You can connect to a multiplayer game. You can battle each other, select your characters, build your characters, spawn things, swap out your towers, and all that stuff. It works. It's just kind of in a semi-ugly state right now, and the visuals are horrible. I was going to do a quick demo though and show everybody what it looks like. Oh, I forgot that was in there. So I'll do a screen share, and maybe I'll give out like a code to somebody watching in chat too. So can you see the screen?
Yes.
All right, cool. So right now, obviously, this is my my beautiful connection menu. You can hit host, start up a game, or you can stop, and then you can go in as a client and then connect by IP. You got to port forward and all that. I haven't set up the lobby and relay stuff, but I'll probably do that this weekend, probably tomorrow or something. It only takes like an hour or two, but I wanted to do direct connections first. So you go in as a host, select your characters. Oh, I added in some new characters yesterday. But I screwed up my UI, so now the Protofactor ones fell off the screen, so I got to fix that. You can go pick all your characters, whatever you want. Like I personally like, there's the eye. The eye has a screwed up shader on him, by the way, Andrew. I don't know what's going on there. The eye reflection, when I import him to URP, it's like a white ball over him instead of looking normal.
Sounds
Just
like
a
it's
heads
a Europe problem.
Yeah, it's when you do the conversion. So you get the dragon. Let's take Anubis, and like the moth chick has a heal. And then go in. So it'll show all of the players here and all of their characters. I forgot to add in, there's a player name, but I forgot to make the field visible so you can't see it. The character builds up off of all your stats. So you can see the stats, or if I hit randomize, you see it changes constantly. So it's based on the stats of each of these characters, and then each one's got an ability. What did I pick here? Whatever. Start. Log in, and if it works, okay. So this is the 4-player map. This is not the one that you have in the test build. And the goal here was, oh come on, I gotta wait for everything to spawn. As soon as it all spawns, everything will kick over and totally break. Oh well, yeah. This is exactly my point. The whole thing broke, and now I can't move around. Let's go back out and go to the main menu. But it is mostly working. And in my tests, here's what happened to the UI. Okay, I broke something in the UI in this one. The actual build version works, so you can run around, swap characters, do all of the combat, spawn things at the spawners. You can swap out your towers and everything else, and just got to get some level design going, some actual level design, and then working on balance and stuff. But it's been fun and interesting putting this whole thing together, and then the process of putting it up on Steam took a whopping 30 minutes this morning. And yeah, I was just having fun with it. Wanted to kind of show it off, share it, and then I'm going to put it out there soon for people to play publicly. Right now, everybody on the show has access, and I'll start giving out access to other people soon. I'm going to give access to everybody in the course this weekend. Just go through, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more on the calls on Monday. But yeah, anybody got ideas or questions, or have a chance to try it out and have it crash and blow up your computer yet?
Not yet.
I got it installed.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Are you going to use lobby and relay in it, or just direct port to port?
That's so yeah. Oh yeah. So in the end, right now I've just got direct IP because it's mostly just me testing on my local network. I'm going to set up lobby and relay. I'm going to do Steam integration probably this weekend for friends lists and all of that stuff. And then the plan is support local hosted stuff, do dedicated servers eventually. I mean, it works on dedicated servers now. I just don't want to set it up and pay for them because it's not monetized or anything yet. But allow people to just host their own servers, host dedicated servers, and get in there and do all of the stuff. And then eventually allow for mods. And right now I've got 30 or so characters in here. I want to get a couple hundred, and then have players be able to just submit their own. So starting like next week, I'm going to start taking submissions for character ideas with stats and abilities and links to asset store models that I can pull in, because I'm not going to go make a bunch of stuff. I want to have hundreds of characters in here. I want to just use stuff that already exists. There we go. Now it's running around, and you can see there's a problem with this level in the navigation. I don't know what it is. It's only on this level, but they stop navigating and start constantly. Every other level is fine. I think it might be something with my Pro Builder mesh, or either that or I screwed up something on the nav baking, and I just haven't figured out what it is yet. But yeah, you can run around, go battle stuff. There's nobody on this level to kill, though, so I should really switch it back to the 1-player level. Yeah, that's kind of where the game's at. I hope to have it like in a fun, playable state within like the next week. Right now it's in a functional, playable state where you can run around, do combat, everything dies, all of the core systems work, and it's easy to just throw in content. It takes like less than 5 minutes to put in a new character, new abilities and stuff. It's just got to get down to the fun now. Got it all functional. So next week is the fun. And what I found so far is that it's been a lot of fun running around. Oh, I got to switch this over to level 1. Running around and taking control of things too. So I may end up with that as a core mechanic. Let me show you real quick. So if I switch this up to load level 1, my tiny level. One of the things I added in as part of the data binding setup is that you can just shift click on any NPC right now and take them over, and then that becomes your character. So you take them over, they can swap between their different classes, run around, and then you can set their target, make them go attack stuff. So I was thinking about doing something as soon as it starts up, something really similar, like as a gameplay mechanic where you can take over your own creeps and control them, but maybe you lose control of your character while you're doing it. So he's just kind of standing there, and then you can switch back and be an extra thing that you can do and control. Still trying to figure it all out. And for everybody who hasn't seen like the overview of the game, the idea is it's a mix of League of Legends where you make your own champions instead of picking pre-made ones. So kind of like everybody's kind of like Uter. You switch between different modes and have different abilities based on that. And you can swap between them constantly at runtime. This is reloading really slow. I probably need to reboot Unity. I've had this problem lately where after a while, I just have to restart it, and then starting up takes like 1 second. I think it's probably one of my plugins, but I'm not sure. And then, so that's like one of the core parts of the game. The other thing was that you're going to be able to control the spawners, so you can pick the NPCs that come out of the spawners the same exact way, kind of combine and make the things. And you can control and swap out your towers and build them kind of like a tower defense. And then the final, I think, really different changes that I want it to be solo teams. So you're in there on your own, but against 5 or 7 other people. So it's kind of like a big free for all. Everybody's pushing towards everybody else's lanes and trying to kill everybody at the same time with a fast gameplay. So if this ever starts, I will show you that, but I don't know if it's going to. I think it may have just died and crashed.
You broke the internet.
Yeah. Well, when it says 1 minute and 32 reloading domain, it means that something has gone horribly wrong.
No, that happens to me all the time. I've got
It shouldn't happen.
things. Each project I think of mine has a different random crash it happens, or like my main package always gets stuck on this one part when I load it up for the first time. I forget which part off the top of my head, but there's, Unity has all the little things that tells you what it's doing as it's loading up. There's one part, half the time it gets stuck. Just quit, start it again. Generally, it works the second time.
Yeah, I need to do more editor debugging. I feel like mine is probably just the fact that I constantly just hit add package. I feel like sometimes I might add too much stuff. And Dom says IKEA MOBAs, a bit of everything. And this one, it was everything that I enjoy in the games. So that was the goal. Take all of the parts that I enjoy about the games and none of the parts that I don't enjoy, like character unlocking, and just be, play a couple rounds, get gold or whatever, use that to unlock characters, or have, microtransaction option to buy them for $5 or whatever. But I'm gonna make it so that it's the same, like not the heavily monetized problems that all those other games have, where they have to add in stupid blockers to make you pay for stuff. I feel like just having lots and lots of characters and new things available, and just being able to speed that up. Plus, with 100 plus characters, new skins is easy. You just go grab the other variations from the asset store. There's your skin, and then the skins can be cheap. You don't have to pay artists tens of thousands of dollars to make each one. Right? Like, they don't have to be insane. Is it going to start? I don't know if this is going to start up or not.
Sure.
I probably just need to reboot. Last week I tried to demo, nothing worked, everything fell apart. I restarted my computer, and then everything was fine. So what the hell?
It's the gods telling you stop demoing stuff.
Yeah. Big MOBA is going to come after you. No, I'm going to come after Big MOBA and beat League of Legends. That's the goal.
Big MOBA.
That's my target. That way, if I totally miss the target, it's still probably fine.
If you want to do that, you're going to have to add some Pokemon.
Oh, no, I have Pokemon are coming in, and anime characters. I want to have them all. Perfect. I want to have a little bit of everything. Like, there's no reason you can't have some Pokemon. I mean, not Pokemons in there. Some
Just like the not
no reason you can't have orange dragons and yellow electric dudes.
that happen to evolve and be captured.
Yes. There are some asset packs like that. So I've been having, like I said, a lot of fun with this, and it is totally broken and crashed, so I can't demo that part. We'll have to demo it. Oh, you know what I could do is play my Steam version. Let's see. Steam play. I forgot. It's up on Steam now. Let me see.
I'll buy it for $500.
500. Would I get a discount? Jeez, Andrew. All right, let's see. So here we go. Log in. This is my screen showing. There we go. Start. And here it is on the this is my beautiful terrain building, by the way. So you can run around, can go blast this guy and switch over to my rock dude, get a big buff and smash him again. Or oops, that's beautiful. Or I can just take him over. So I can run over, shift click and take over whatever I want. This guy's only got 1 roll or soul. This guy's got 3, so you can switch between them. And you can do it on the towers too. So just a side effect. Oh, come on. If I could click the tower and not the spawner, I could take it over. But apparently I'm terrible at clicking. And then on these, you can just set what spawns there, set the different creeps that spawn and all that stuff. Oh, the gelatinous cube. It's still my favorite, Andrew.
Oh, good.
The big cube, just because it's set up to go. I think I showed you before. Let me see. Let me take him over. Come on. Take control. There we go. Yeah, so the cube, his ability is that I think I might have showed you this. He runs up and he eats things.
Oh, yes.
And then carries them around. So you just go drop them off wherever you want. And I figured it'd just do some damage over time while you're in there too. I just haven't added that.
Can you eat one of your own teammates and protect them from getting damage while you bring them to the front lines?
There is absolutely no reason you couldn't do that.
Nice.
And my thought with this game is like anything that like you could theoretically do in like a D&D style, I'd just allow. I'm trying to minimize rules, which really just means that I'm not checking things very much. So there's less if statements. There's no target type check or anything else. Like I can literally, this guy can't do it on himself, but because he can't pick himself up, but any other character can just attack themselves. Let's see.
Can the cube eat another cube?
It should be able to, yeah. Let's see. I think those cubes have all eaten each other. They're eating towers. Right?
Yeah, and then the singularity will form.
So now they're that cube just ate me. Oh no. I don't know what happened there. He got flattened out, but yeah. And then the treasure chests are of course full of money. So you can run around and loot them for all the cash and then use that to buy units. So I got to figure out the exact balance and stuff. But like I said, I want to try to make it fun and as community driven as possible. So people already have ideas, feel free to submit them. But I'm going to do a big submission push on Monday to get ideas for characters, abilities, all that kind of stuff. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And then, like I said, beat League of Legends eventually. That's the goal. Yeah, or come close to it at least. get to 1% of League of Legends would be perfectly fine too. Yeah. Well, anyways. Let's see. Are you making? I'll take a couple questions here. Education or to sell it on Steam? Both. So I'm going to sell it on Steam eventually. That's the goal, or on whatever platform it ends up on, probably Steam. But I'm also using it a little bit for educational stuff. So it's a great source for video content, video ideas, and I've made all the source code up to this point available to the students in the multiplayer mastery course as well. So they're going through and digging through it, and we're talking about it a little bit. There's not a public Steam link yet. They have to approve it before it happens. So you got to wait a little while before there's a public one. Right now, there's just Steam queue, so you can redeem it. Let's see. Were there any other questions in chat that I missed? I wasn't really looking at the chat questions at all.
There was one interesting question earlier. Someone was asking about the Nature Manufacturer stuff on mobile.
Oh, okay.
And I thought maybe Pavel would like to explain how to get those working on mobile.
I think that would be cool. I got to turn this off. I keep forgetting that it has sound, and I only hear the sound when I do a build.
Yeah, so most of our assets work on mobile without the problems. The only problem we have is always optimization. Yeah. We have for both shaders, we have versions for the PC and mobile versions of the shaders for most of our assets. And the second thing is with mobile, you would have to use lower LODs than the top ones. Yeah, we mostly do 4 to 5 levels of LODs for most of the objects. Only smaller objects have, I think, 3 LODs, so we can use the lower ones on mobile without problems. There are quite many games that do that, use our assets, use our RAM, River, Lava, Forest on mobile without any problems, even on mobile VR.
Nice.
Yeah, I did not know that you could run on mobile VR too. I didn't realize it was that optimized.
Yeah, we optimize it quite a lot.
Huh.
It's a funny thing, the mobile question. I get asked with my own stuff all the time, oh, can it work on mobile? Or people will just assume it doesn't. That's the thing that annoys me the most. People are like, oh, I love your stuff, but I'm making a mobile game, so I can't use it. And I'm like,
it's not blocky enough.
yeah, apparently there's that misconception. But the thing that gets me is my human characters. I used them in my 2015 mobile game, and it worked perfectly fine, along with all the other monsters, and it was fine. And that was now 9 years ago, and I'm pretty sure that the new iPhones are more powerful than the desktops from 9 years ago. So, it's funny that somehow people still assume that mobile projects need to be somehow blocky and basic and barren of all interesting things.
Yeah, that seems to be the idea. I think it's because that's kind of how it was when they first started. You know, when mobile games first came out for the first multiple years, you were really, really limited on what you could do, and that has changed over the last few years. So let's see. There are a couple other questions in chat. Where's the one I was trying to find?
You talk about the network physics one?
Yes.
So Unity with Zahir said, how do you sync physics? And someone else was asking about, same person was asking about network rigid body. So basically, just asking how you were handling. I was curious about that as well, to be honest.
That's interesting. I'm trying to find it. For some reason, I don't see the message in chat. I think I might just need to refresh some. So networking in multiplayer with physics. It's all server authoritative, or right now host authoritative. Eventually it'll go over to dedicated server. And there's not a whole lot of physics in this specific game. So in the MOBA setup that I've got, everything's point and click movement. So the combat, everything is relatively straightforward there. It's handled the same on every system, or it can just be done on the servers. Zero physics there. And on things like the projectiles, there's no actual, the way that they work is, at least the ones that are in there right now, they don't do any actual physics at all. They just lerp from their launch point to their end point. Once they reach that end point, then they fire off their events for dealing with the impacts and stuff. So they don't actually do any physics as well. And with when I get into adding in projectiles that do fire around, they'll be very similar. So, I mean, you'll be able to dodge them, obviously, and they'll be a moving object, but those are going to be server authoritative, but then replicated out on the client with their start time. So with like a projectile, what it'll do is launch it at a specific server time. You send that time on the server where it launches. On the clients, they're really just kind of replicating the same movement. They know when it launched, where it should be based on when it launched. And as long as it's not freeform moving and doing some AI logic on the control, and it's just going straight, it's really brain dead simple. You just move it along, and then on the server or the host, whatever's authoritative, deal with the actual collision. So on that point, it may end up doing a collision. It may end up just doing a distance check from the enemies, and once it gets close enough, it'll hit them. I'm not really sure. It'll probably just be a simple collision though on a moving little collider or trigger that's going on the server. But on the clients, it's not that at all. It's just replicated as a visual object moving along from the start point to the end point, and then changing out the projectile visual. So not a lot of networked physics really in a MOBA. Like, there's very little at all. I said the free shooting projectiles are the only thing, and there's very few of those. Most of the projectiles end up being straight to target, or they may. And when I say that they're going straight to target, they might not necessarily go like directly to the target. They might do like some sort of pattern or some sort of wiggle or some other thing, and that's easy to replicate as well. It's just doing homing beacons and or homing missiles and things slightly harder. That's why those ones just don't need physics, though, because they're always finding the target. They just kind of lerp towards that target instead. Hopefully that explained it a little bit.
And so for syncing the navigation, you just have the nav mesh and you just set the target on the host and on every client, and they independently.
No, so set the target on the host, and then you can either do two things. One is send up the path that's decided from the host up to all of the clients, or two, just use a network transform and replicate it. Right now, it's just got a network transform replicating it, which is not ideal for performance, but it'd take like 20 minutes to go convert that over to just sending up the path. And the reason you want to do that is in case there's any variation in the system. Sometimes they'll generate different paths, and if you had the path generated differently, obviously characters would be out of sync in totally wrong places. So you just have the authoritative thing send that up, and then and go from there. You just kind of replicate it. And the same thing, you send the server start time of when they start walking on it, so then it can fast forward along and move them to the right spot. A couple more questions. URI likes the multiplayer physics stuff. This is very simple stuff. Nick asked what the strategy was. Will it be free with in-game purchases? That's my thought. I think probably free with in-game purchases to unlock characters, but maybe not. Maybe it'll just be cheap with all the characters and then some skin upgrades if people want or something. I'm not super set on it right now. I just want to make it fun, get it to the point where it's like full-on production, and go from there. So, I hope to have it playable by everybody sometime this summer at least. That's the goal. If not before then. It's only been like 2 months, so gotta get it done quick though. I want to have this be like a 6-month project total. Unless it blows up and gets to be League of Legends style, then obviously it can get more love. Okay, so can we ask Will about what he's most excited for in Unity 6? And not confirm when it's dropping, but his favorite day and month of the year is. Do you have a favorite thing for Unity 6?
Yeah, I mean, I'm using 6 for my game at the minute, aka 23.4. So I'm on like cutting edge beta from the hub, so I'm on beta 13 at the moment. We're using, in terms of what we're using for our game, I'm using basically the graphics tier stuff that was put in. So that is a GPU occlusion culling, adaptive probe volumes, and then basically the GPU. Well, we call it GPU driven rendering, but basically it's the switch in the project settings in graphics where you're offloading a bunch of stuff from CPU to GPU, and so it's sort of marketed, but it's also true as a make faster button for graphics, because it's basically just an optimization around how we render stuff. So I recommend everybody try it in their game. Mileage will vary. It's worked out well for us. We get a little frame rate bump out of it. And obviously with things like the occlusion culling part, it's our acknowledgement of we've had Umbra for years, and we're making our own solution to that we can integrate with the render pipeline. So because our game is in HDRP, it works well for us. I think those are the main things that I'm really interested in Unity 6. There's a bunch of quality of life stuff which I would almost say people would be as excited about just because they're time savers. Like I was talking to a guy this morning who's working on a back and forward selection history buttons and shortcuts. And they're just one of those tiny things where you're like, oh yeah, we always wanted to have that, and always wanted to be able, like I always wanted to bind it to a bit like Photoshop brush sizes, the square bracket keys. And it's just like a bunch of small things that also get landed with all these big kind of showcase features as well. But that one's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I want a back button.
Yeah,
I've been
you've got one
complaining
now.
about that recently.
Right now, I mean soon.
I said, looks like Tech Dave likes the package manager changes too. I like those too, where you can now see the assets you have in there and the updates available for them. It's pretty nice. You have to go digging around and try to figure that out. Also, the rendering thing, that is in HDRP. Does it work in URP as well?
Yeah, it's for both. As far as I can remember, yeah, no, it's definitely for both.
Okay. Just make sure everybody knows. Go check it out. I should probably enable that on mine. I saw it at Unite and I forgot about it and I haven't actually turned it on.
I'm going to bring up and find out exactly where it is in the menu just so I can quote things to you. I realized I'm on like the worst machine for doing this stream on because I wanted to bring up the game and some other stuff at the same time. If I join again, I'll join on the PC.
Oh yeah, you definitely have to. Every week.
I don't know with Restream, which is the platform we're using right now. I can add in another machine, right?
Oh yeah. Just grab the same link on the other system. You'll show up as well too.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, here's the article Powell just shared too. Let's pop that up. The official GPU rendering post in the forums.
Resident Draw, that's the one.
Yeah.
It's not a sexy name, but it is an accurate name.
All right, I've definitely got to reboot. It's hung for me. It's been reloading domain for 17 minutes.
Yeah, you need to give it.
That is not going to load.
Yeah, I would suggest if anyone wants to use the GPU lesson lower to read this forum post. It's got lots of news. There's also some tests from people using it already below, so great post. And it's quite easy to turn on, but remember to check some things that in URP you have to be forward plus and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think you're right, Paul. I think it's forward plus, but then they're working on adding.
Yeah, they're working on it, and it's planned to be in different ones too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. Well, yeah, I'm in forward plus now, I think, so I'll have to turn it on and see how it does.
Remember that if you scroll a little lower, there are 4 main points that you have to check in your project. These ones. Yeah, no, higher, just below the. Yeah, you have 4 points here. Yeah,
right here.
You have to check the batch render group. You have to remember that it's in forward and turn off static batching because it will break some stuff, and check the settings for light mapping.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through this today, or either today or tomorrow. I gotta get the video to run.
It takes about 10 minutes, so that's not a problem to have it.
Oh, we didn't talk about upscaling, did we? There's
the
other part which is quite cool.
That looks really cool. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's called dynamic resolution in the settings. I mean, we refer to part of it as STP because we love acronyms for some reason. Well, it's also because the acronym is very long. Spatial temporal post-processing. So if you know about things like DLSS, so the NVIDIA thing, it's basically us making a more of a cross-platform equivalent where you can scale up and take the post-processing hit that you're doing and scale that down and then stretch it and get similar results out of it at a much lower cost. And so what you can do in these settings, I'll try and add this machine to the call in a second. What you can do with these settings is to basically stack them in terms of priority. So it's like a fallback. You can use SDP or DLSS depending on what you want to do with it.
Nice. Yeah, it looked really cool and super promising for performance.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's going to give everybody a big benefit. So I'm going to just try and add my machine, and I'll just point out the things that we're talking about in the settings, so people can grab them in their own project too.
So I'm going to drop the link Powell just shared for the feature highlights as well into chat if anybody wants to check that out. And as soon as Will's got his other one in here, we'll see it all visually.
just figuring out how to do screen sharing. Oh, yep. Don't have audio
also
on.
well. There we go.
There we go.
AW.
Let me just check here. Okay. You get a sneak peek of the game in the background. That's always fun.
All right.
So, share the screen. Oh, this is where I have to open some settings in macOS. I'm sorry. This is an unprepared demo.
Hey, at least yours didn't crash.
I do have to quit it and relaunch it, apparently, so that's fun. Oh, man. Modern living, guys.
Yeah.
So hopefully what I'm about to show you will be the correct settings. Yeah, here we go. Share screen. Come on, we can do it.
Here it comes.
No, that's not it. Okay. This is why I shouldn't ad hoc just do random things, right?
I do it all the time. It's fine.
The entire screen. There we go. Cool.
There we go. Cool. So we'll switch it up to that one, and we'll make it nice and big.
Yeah, there we go. So I've jumped into edit, project settings. I'm in HDRP. This will also be the same in URP. But you jump down and you'll find a few different things. So one of them that we mentioned earlier is GPU resident drawer. So switching this from, it'll be on disabled by default. It's a new feature, and you can enable instance drawing. That's what will switch on the kind of jump from CPU to GPU. And then you've got GPU occlusion culling. You check that on as well. Recommend trying that, see how it affects things. Another big thing that's coming up is render graph, which I recommend people try out. That's going to give you an overview of rendering. Is it in this build? I'm trying
Probably under analysis.
Analysis, of course it is. Yeah, thank you. Render graph viewer. So this thing, has an incredibly detailed view of everything that's going on in your current rendering setup. I am not a graphics engineer, and I don't pretend to understand all of it. But for those of you who know exactly how it works, you can see how much detail you kind of get out of that. But then the other thing I was talking about earlier was dynamic resolution, which you can enable here. And like I said, you can stack these by priority and give yourself a bit of clarity around which ones you're going to use first. You can choose a different mode as well. That's specific to DLSS. And I just recommend people try switching them on and seeing how they affect the performance. Use the forum link that was shared in the chat.
Nice. Do you see pretty decent performance benefits so far? I mean, I know you're still kind of early on.
Like I said, I'm super unoptimized right now, so I think I'm committing more sins than the feature is solving, as is customary. But yeah, no, we get a bump out of it, which is really nice. I'm just trying to look around my game, see if there's any spoilers to the title. But no, you've only got the initials to go by, which is fun. There we go.
Nice. All right, well, it looks like Yorai has joined us. You got some thoughts on this stuff? What's that?
Yeah, actually a lot. I've been messing with this for the past month on and off, and I've been reading every single piece of documentation about it, even one that you cannot find on the Unity documentation. Instead, you go to the Unity official documentation and you look up individual things on the different versions and see what changes between version histories.
You are literally diffing the code to find out what's going on, right?
I wish I had the source to diff, but yes, I'm diffing the documentation on the internet. So yeah, I have a lot to say both about the resident drawer and the STPP, and the render graph is amazing and annoying, but mainly amazing. So yeah, I have a lot here. Where do I go first?
Whatever you feel most passionate about.
I mean, start at the top. Start with resident drawer. Like, how have you found it?
Yeah. So I've been trying it, and the first thing that I noticed, because I'm I have a zero garbage collection policy in anything that I try. I start a new project, I check immediately there's no problems. There were no problems in the latest beta, which is great because previous betas did have problems. So yay, Unity 6 beta 13 is good. If you do enable the resident drawer, there is a tiny GC allocation of like 48 bytes when you start using it. But I already reported it on the thread that you have shown, and they have already said that they fix it. So yay, very supportive for that. As for how this works, if you read the entire thing, I'm going to summarize it very quickly. What this does is it's looking at mesh renderers, specifically the ones that don't have movement to them, so not skinned mesh renderers that deform every time that the transform hierarchy changes. It takes all of those and it sees what it can batch together, and then it creates the batches, and then it renders through those batches, which is how you get the batch render group toggle. This is why it's called the resident drawer, effectively. And what this does for you is it makes a lot of draw calls effectively be a single draw call from the CPU side to the GPU of just like whatever could be batched together. So it's just a very easy tick for a lot of performance, assuming your hierarchy doesn't change. Because as soon as things start moving, it has to rebuild that, or if you add new things. So for static scenes, this is amazing. Because if you have like, I don't know, an old temple and a million bricks, individual bricks, actually building it, this is going to batch all of them and it's going to save you a ton of performance. It's also calculating some light information for that, things that go beyond me because I didn't look into it too deep, but it's great. For things that you plan to do dynamically, you actually have to take special precautions if you are using the resident drawer. So for one example that is literally on the thread is that if you have an object that changes position per camera, it cannot be batched together with the rest because the batching happens once before the cameras render. So for example, if you have a game with an object that follows the camera around, like a piece of UI that's actually 3D geometry or whatever, if you change it just before the camera on the camera rendering code, it's actually not going to work anymore because it's been batched for the rendering from the resident drawer, which is fine because they give you a component that says, this object is specifically doing this thing. Please do not batch it together with the rest. So they gave you the solution for that. It's not a scary feature. It's not like a bad feature. It's just a side effect of a very good optimization.
Mhm.
So you have to take that into account. So I'm a big fan of the resident drawer. There are some things that kind of concern me, but I have not gotten to mess around with that. And it's specifically very advanced things regarding manually drawing a renderer for a specific render pass. So I guess I can segue that into what happened to render passes because now we have the render graph. So a tiny bit of history here. In Unity, you used to have a render stack of objects that needs to be rendered, and then you had post-processing at the end. If you wanted to inject anything in between those steps, you previously had no clear way to say, you go here. You had to actually make an object, have that object have a pass of a shader, and that object would do whatever you need to do. And we had code of like on render camera, on game objects in the mono behaviors to call things, but you had no ability to actually sort out which object calls its own on render camera hook first. So it was total chaos. Then came the scriptable render pipeline. And like the name, it actually lets you script what actually happens. So there is now order. There is an actual hierarchy of passes you can see and inject. And those render passes are the new way of doing things, both in URP and HDRP, to my understanding. I did not mess with HDRP almost at all, so take all of that with a grain of salt.
You're correct.
Yeah, okay, great. So you define render passes and then you inject them into every single camera's render draw calls as you need them. And if a pass has something to do, you just call C# code of everything that you want to do within that pass. There was one problem here, though, that was still not solved, is that passes did not know which resources are being used. So if you started with like one texture that's holding details for a pass in a later texture, there is no way to know if the texture is safe to write to. So you had to keep a unique resource for every single thing on the screen, because you don't know if it's like used right now or not. If only these two passes at the start intended to use a texture of like 4K, and then the rest of the frame needs more texture space, but like those are not using it, you're just wasting resources. So what render graph does is it comes in and says, hey, for these passes, these resources are necessary. And then once you build out all the list of necessities for the frame, if a resource is no longer needed, Unity can just allocate it to something else, which is fantastic because now you're not spending as many resources. By the sheer nature of render graph existing, you optimize whatever you have as long as there are passes that actually don't need to keep everything until the end, which you don't need to keep everything until the end. Like the end render literally would just be the output texture and maybe whatever is spatially consistent. So some things that need to stay for longer frames, more frames, sorry. So there is that. And for doing things with render graph, you actually have to start defining the resources that you need for each render pass. So it's a bit more boilerplate to do the things that you need to do to have a render pass. But render passes were already slightly more boilerplate than just the on-render camera that we had before scriptable render pipeline. It's all fine because I keep seeing consistent improvements to that. So I am a big fan of render graph. That's what I can say.
Did you try out STP as well? Or?
I have not tried STPP. That said, I don't think there is anything manual for me to do because it's like it's basically lower render and then it upscales the post-processing passes, right? So I don't see much that is like manual input from me required. Ergo, I don't need to understand how the system works as much as the others.
Yeah, I think we've got quite a lot of benefit out of it because I'm using like a mix of volume-based and global post-processors and just stacking all kinds of stuff on there just to make things look grungy and atmospheric, I guess. But it means that we get a bit of a benefit. And I think what you were describing earlier as well about, the fact that a lot of the game is static and making it a single player game, there's no proceduralism to it per se. So, we're getting a lot of kind of straight out benefit from the resident draw stuff. I think.
Yeah. To be fair, it's still a relatively quick process, and you can probably still get a lot of benefits. Like if you spawn something in a level chunk, the game is top down, right? I'm getting a fist.
Again?
You were mentioning Umbra, the ARPG thing, or I missed the start of the stream, so.
Oh, we just started talking about all the graphic stuff that's coming in 6. So we were talking about the group of things.
So just in a more general sense, if you have chunk loading for your game, just as an example, and you spawn a section of a level, that's not going to be a problem because you may have a hitch as that level loads, but you're already planning to have a hitch because you're loading all the resources for the level and starting all the objects related to the level. So when that happens, then the new objects pop in. The render batcher will say, hey, there are new things here. I need to make a bigger batch. And then the batch is going to just be the new batch. It's just a tiny addition to a big addition of the frame time for the loading of the thing. But then you still get all the performance. So there isn't a real big issue. If you do have objects that move around, it would be a bit annoying to try and optimize for render batching automatically. I'm not exactly sure what Unity 6 is doing in that regard because, again, I didn't look into it too deeply. But I did see a message on the forums that somebody had 1 million cubes and tried to move one and it kept rebuilding the batch. So I hope this is a small problem that can be solved easily. There are things that you can do to optimize for this, as far as I'm aware. So Entities is kind of good with that, at least.
Well, yeah, that's one example. But I mean, it's generally speaking, it's a new feature, but it's been in the works for at least a couple of years, as far as I remember. So they've tested it with all sorts of scales of project and genres and things like that. So I'm hopeful that, like you saw in the forum, each time these things come up, they can learn more about how people want to use it, and then million cube dots game will be successful too.
Yeah, and
That
just to be
seems
fair,
like a strange game. Right.
Well,
You
tell
can do a lot
Peter Molyneux that.
So just to clarify further for everybody listening, when you use the the resonant drawer, it doesn't actually do anything for the rendering of visual effects, no particle system, no anything like that, because those things by their nature are not going to be affected. Like if you read the actual post, it says it's literally affecting only the mesh renderers, exactly the things that don't update a lot. So if you have like moving objects like rubble and stuff, don't worry about anything happening to your drawing, because that's using the exact original code path that it used.
And that's why it's kind of combined with a bunch of different things like STP and other optimizations, because it's like recognizing a bunch of bottlenecks that we had in graphics and trying to level everything all up in the same go. But it's more just the order in which they landed. That's why we were like, internally we talk about it as like tier 0, tier 1, tier 2 as a set of work that the teams all collaborated on, because we wanted to make sure everything was cross-tested with everything else. That's the challenge of a kind of a global development teams, but yeah, so they're all landing together, and so hopefully you'll see, as 6 rolls out, you'll see kind of improvements to those all the time. And there's stuff that's not in the current betas yet, if I remember rightly, but you'll see those things coming too pretty soon.
Well, there are a lot of amazing things that are already in the betas that are like silent heroes that almost nobody is talking about, and I'm hyping it on them like crazy. So
give us some
Unity 6
examples. I'd love to hear what you consider that. I was very boringly talking about a back button earlier, which
I want the back button. That's me.
MVP for sure.
Yeah.
But
the best thing that's been added to Unity in the past few years, from what I've seen, and I have a lot of things that I've seen in Unity, is literally the renderer layers. The separation between physics layers definition and renderer layer definition is huge. There are a lot of things that you can do with that, specifically for the kind of visual effects that I'm looking for in games, that are like incredibly frustrating to do until this was added. And I've been messing with this a lot, and I'm finding constantly that there are new ways to use both the render passes and the render layers together to do very, very fun and very easy visual wins. So
yeah.
I'm
using that in our game because it's all set in the dark, and I want the character to be highlighted when they move, so you can tell that they're making sound and becoming more visible, but you don't want them to carry a flashlight or something. So I used render layers just to specifically light parts of the player, so it's nice and subtle. Yeah, I was quite pleased with how easy it was. And I kind of looked at it, I was like, oh, I normally use layers for that, and you've only got a certain number of layers. I was like, oh wait, there's a render layers feature. Oh shit, that's great.
Yeah, and there is a lot of stuff that you can do with it, like beyond just assigning things to different layers. You can actually manually adjust it, and then with the scriptable render pipeline and render passes, you can actually say, hey, call for this layer that I actually just changed a few objects to put into this layer, then grab them all, then render only those objects, and then, do the thing that you need to do. So it's like a per render pass unique allocation, because right now you cannot create like a collection of objects that you can render specifically for a render pass easily. You have to assign them to some kind of callable macro of things, like they are within this layer to that layer. They use this sort layer, which by the way, sorting layers in 3D are overpowered, something that I have not seen literally anybody talk about.
Can you describe overpowered in this context?
So something that is in every Unity renderer but is not used in 3D almost at all, to my understanding, is that the render order of an object is still a field. Now, in 2D, this makes a lot of sense because you want some objects to draw before others, even though they are on the same layer, in the same sorting layer. But you can still assign these details to a 3D object. Now, this wouldn't matter at all because the depth pass exists. So the second object that is supposed to be like in the front now is still behind on depth, so it still draws behind. Until you can start filtering only this layer to that layer in the render pass, which then you can start putting that object in the front. So it's very fun.
So you're cheating with a 2D feature with 3D.
It's not a 2D feature. It's the render order. It's actually asking for this object to come into the render later, and you can just like use that. And yes, I will admittedly say this is hackery in Unity.
Yeah,
I don't enjoy hackery for the sake of it. What I want to do is to be able to say, hey, draw my object, please. And Unity doesn't give me that option. And I've been asking for it, and I've been putting it on threads, and I still don't get it. And there are a lot of small things that you don't get if you don't go through the entire rendering process in Unity. So, for example, lightning and I forgot how they call it. Not atmospherics. There is a name for this, for the ambient lighting information of an object. So that's kind of something that you don't get when you try to draw a mesh instance. You have to actually set all these variables yourself, and they are not exposed to anything except like the Unity shader and the entire code to say, hey, use these lights, please, because I'm trying to render this object with these lights. You cannot do that in Unity right now. So this kind of feature set does let me do that. So I'll take it.
That's fair.
Yeah, and again, this is like good stuff. It's not bad stuff. The fact that we can do this is a good thing. It's not like in an ideal world there would be something better. No, it's not necessarily that it would be better. It's just like it's one way of doing things as opposed to another way of doing things.
What are these other hero things that have popped out to you?
So the global shader variables that you can now define. It's huge because it reduces authoring time a lot. You can actually start adjusting things that you know are going to be applied in multiple things without having to create your own editor to do that, and trying to understand how it interacts with the entire set of the Unity ecosystem. So I'm a big fan of that. I have a very big grudge against things that are difficult to author just because there is no good tooling for them. So the tooling improvements in Unity 6 have been amazing, and I'm very thankful that we're getting them finally.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah. The other thing is multiplayer play mode is actually like maturing, even though there are some regressions. I think I told you about that in private.
You were
previously
sharing feedback at length, which I'm going to do something with on Monday.
Yeah, but the thing is that the multiplayer play mode 0.3 is still working in the latest Unity, and it's still working good, and it's still the best feature since light spread in Unity before the render layers got into the mix. It's like they're competing in different fields, you know?
Yeah, they're like peers, like cousins.
Yeah, but they are both great in their own regard. Like multiplayer play mode is straight up the thing that reduces authoring time in a multiplayer game the most. There is not a single feature in the entirety of Unity that has cut down this much development time as multiplayer play mode.
Not yet, but yeah,
when it works.
I did not have any issues with multiplayer play mode to the extent that you.
But you're still on 0.3, right?
I keep going back to 0.3.
Yeah, I've been working with 0.6, and I just sent over a bunch of info on issues that I've had with it. It seems to fall apart if the project's any kind of big.
I have not experienced that, but then again, I'm using relatively low poly models, so
on the 50 gig project, it fails every time.
Yikes. On the 1.0, it works okay. It's just not as ideal on very small and minor things that don't harm anything if you have two monitors. Let's just say that. So it's very small and minor things, like when you close and open play mode, Unity's extra player windows for multiplayer play mode will close themselves and reopen themselves. The reason that they do that is because Unity has a layout system, and that layout lets you see like the game view, the hierarchy, the console. And they are saying, we have two sets of options for these. So if you are not in play mode, you probably only want to see the console. There is no need for an extra game view. And if you are entering play mode, you want to see the game view because like this is multiplayer play mode, right? So this is the way that they have chosen to do it. They give you two sets of layouts that you can customize, and then they call a method to switch between them. Now, in an earlier version, they did this without closing and opening, but then they decided they're going through the main route, the main method call in the Unity editor itself to do that. And if you ever try to use the shortcut to switch layouts in Unity, you'll see that the window closes and opens, like because you changed your layout. So this is what they're doing, which is fine. It's just a bit of an annoyance when you see the window pop in and pop out if you just click play mode and close. And you can do that very quickly because we finally have like the no domain reloading, and it's actually gotten faster as Unity updated. Unity 6 in regards to enter play mode and exit play mode time is extremely fast. So that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I found the same. It's relatively quick, except for, like I said, occasionally it just starts to bug out and then it gets slow, and then I restart the editor and then it's fast again. But like I said, I got a ton of plugins in here, so it could be any one of those or something with the latest beta, because I'm also on beta 13. So try to stay up with the most recent beta and hope that it's stable enough. It's good enough as long as it's not released. That's always my thing. Like I will update constantly, stay on the bleeding edge until the game is out, and then I used to do it even after the game was out, and then I pushed out a Unity 5.5 update that broke collision in the game randomly for no reason. Yeah, and it totally destroyed the gameplay, and I spent like a week trying to figure out what it was. And it was just a small bug in 5.5.
Yikes.
So now it just, as long as the game's not out, I'll update.
And you reminded me of another silent hero that's actually kind of huge for custom editors. So you previously had editor attributes that let you change how a serialized field draws, like the ranged field for like having a slider for floats or ints. In the latest Unity, you can actually finally affect collections, which is something you couldn't do before. You could do workarounds by like having a serialized class and then having the collection inside it and then drawing the serialized class, but you're actually increasing the access cost for that internal collection just to have a custom renderer, which is not ideal. You're actually changing the underlying code, which you never want. So having an attribute actually change how the collection draws is great. Very thankful for that. Again, Unity 6 does a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, that's a nice one. I've been a big fan of the Unity 6 updates just for the UI in general too, though. I feel like it feels a little bit cleaner and smoother and easier to use. And we were talking about the package manager earlier too. Have you enjoyed the new differences in there, URI?
I do like seeing the bigger sections for the tabs and like having it cleaner, more cleanly laid out. I didn't have any problems in using it, but I also didn't import a lot of packages in Unity 6 yet, because most of the projects that I'm making are like small. Okay, let's see what's going in this beta. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is nice. I don't like this. This is a bug that I'm going to report. And then like I'm going to try and do a thing here, and I did the thing. And this is like every tiny beta that I see that has something interesting in it. So the latest beta I tried is beta 13, and I'm eagerly awaiting to reach the 0 GC for Resident Drawer, and then I'm going to try something more extensive with that. So with regards to the Resident Drawer, I actually have like a use case that I'm thinking is going to be quite nice for it, which is specifically a lot of the things that you get on Asset Store, for example, are modular pieces. And modular pieces are great until you try making a big scene where the performance dies because it's all separate objects. So colliders are not solved with the Resident Drawer. So that's still going to be a problem, because if you have like a million 1 by 1 meter floor tile, it's not going to solve that for you. So I still have to optimize for that. But for the rendering, this is actually pretty fantastic. Like on the level of, I can actually make a mountain and put a lot of rocks on the side of it to give it like extra depth and shape it out, and not actually pay any of the cost of like actually having this many separate renders for the mountain. Now, it's arguable that if you're not going to get like really close to the mountain, does it really matter? Can't you just have a lower LOD for it? But I'm going to try and get closer to it and like have actual interactions with it with just simplified colliders. So
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense with like all those assets too that have samples that are those modular ones, and it's going to make those not perform terribly anymore, which is nice, or at least make them better.
They perform better on the rendering side. If you still have the colliders, you're still missing on that.
Yeah, the collider thing I feel like is easy for most people to solve though, because majority of them it's going to be like build out a couple basic colliders yourself.
So colliders are like the silent poison that Unity has, because you don't understand that they're a problem because it's a death by 1,000 cuts, and you're going to have a bazillion colliders in your scene before the time you actually realize, oh shit, the colliders are the problem in the scene. So
yeah. But I mean, that's an easier one to solve than the rendering one for most people, because they can replace the colliders, combining the meshes. I guess it depends on their level design.
Yeah.
I was going to say, often people will make the mistakes of, doing things that cause physics recalculations that they can't see. So whether it's like, oh, this thing should have a rigid body on it, so the physics system knows that it's going to be moving, or it's moved, or any of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's can be tricky.
Actually, you reminded me something in regards to that. Well, not specifically that, but earlier you were talking about network for game objects, and there have been big updates to that as well. I've actually been reading the documentation on that and failing to find more documentation than... okay, so small journey here. I've been looking at netcode for game objects a lot because I want to make a multiplayer experience. This is why I'm saying that multiplayer play mode is the best thing since sliced bread. It's specifically because it lowers the authoring time for making the multiplayer experience. It's great for that. I really cannot find anything better than multiplayer play mode. Netcode for game objects is very convenient with play mode because it's Unity's default solution for networking, and it works with multiplayer play mode. That's why they're in the documentation. They're shared together. It's a tool for showcasing netcode for game objects at minimum. So I tried to use netcode for game objects multiple times. Every time I try it, I find like a bug or two, and I report that. And to be honest, it's the best experience I had in reporting bugs in Unity, because netcode for game objects actually has a public GitHub, which has a ton of pull requests and issue reports, and the developers are actually responding there, as opposed to a few other repositories of Unity that I did not have this experience. Netcode for game objects, I actually had a good experience reporting to, so I'm actually actively involving myself with it. And I've seen that there are new features coming with the latest displays of netcode for game objects, like the shared authority, distributed authority, sorry. And something that I've not seen talked about is anticipation, which is apparently coming in netcode for game objects 1.9, which is not released yet, but there is a branch for it on GitHub, and there is also there is a bite-sized samples GitHub for Unity for netcode for game objects. It's like samples that showcase how to do certain things, and they actually did include a sample for anticipation, and I have a lot of thoughts about that one. So,
oh wow, I didn't know that was there. I'm going to check that out this week.
Yeah, so just for some expectation matching, I guess, when you have an object in multiplayer and there is lag, there is going to be a conflict of, did you actually dodge a bullet or not? Something that you talked about earlier. And one of those conflicts is, hey, that bullet was shot 0.3 seconds ago. You stood in that place, you should have been shot because the bullet would have hit you. But on your side of the client, you actually moved during that time. So a few things developers can do is that they can speed up the bullet 0.3 seconds from the moment it's been shot. But then if you were really close to it, actually it would spawn past you, and then the effect you see is wrong. And even if you do that, the time that it takes for the result to actually reach back to the owner is going to be mismatched with your own lag. So you actually have to add twice the travel time, so 0.6 seconds. And it has its own issues. Now, with anticipation, you actually get the ability to say, hey, this is the last update I received, correct things so that they look matching to that 0.3 or 0.6 thing. So it doesn't do anything beyond that. Now, there is an anticipated transform and an anticipated transform example that show exactly that. When they have like a little ghost that show you where the actual authority of the object is, as opposed to the visual object that you see. So that's great. The problems. It's a very open-ended solution. It doesn't do almost anything by itself, which is good. It means that things that you don't like will not happen, which is fine. The problems come when you actually try to start using it for more than just anticipation of visual effects. So one thing that is pretty big and desired in networking that netcode for entities has, but netcode for game objects does not, is predicted physics. You cannot correct physics in the current model of anticipation, which is fine. It's just an update for netcode for game objects. I'm not expecting like full restructure. The thing that it does is it's basically going for any object that has like an anticipation thing, and it just calls the unre-anticipate hook on the components of that object. So you can write your own implementations, but they will not be called for every single tick that you get. They are getting called for like once per object. So it's not like everything goes one tick, everything goes second tick, everything goes third tick, fourth tick, fifth tick. It's once per any object, and that's it. So you cannot resimulate physics for this. But what you can do is register objects to prediction reconciliator thing, and then you can just let that one object call on re-anticipation, and then this object replays everything. But it's basically you have to implement your own solution, which is not as nice as some other things that are available. I know that Photon Fusion has something for it. I know that Fishnet is working on something for it. I heard that Mirror is working on something for it. So I hope to see netcode for game objects get something for this, because like this is going to be like the big thing that makes everything way better. As far as I'm concerned, for like multiplayer synchronicity. But then again, netcode for entities is like the best one here because it's like straight up implemented it out of the box. Entities are still hard to work with.
Yeah, you just have to change your total workflow, but you do get the benefit. Yeah, that looks cool. So you said the 1.9 is up on GitHub now?
Yeah, it's up on GitHub, but it's still not a release. So it's not in release status. Yeah. And then in 2.0, there are 2 experimental branches for it right now. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but that one has the distributed authority as far as I understand. I cannot find anything about this. I really want to try this. I cannot find anything about this. I'm trying to get from the diffs how you're supposed to use it. This is like the level I'm dealing with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've looked into that a little bit. We'll have to talk about it sometime real soon. I've got to take a call. I'm going to AFK a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to ask Chris, my friend who works on the multiplayer team, about a couple of those things. Hi, Chris. I'm sending you this video right now.
You're right. So as you know, I'm a fan of those buttons that you just click and suddenly things just work better. That's my style of game dev, the easy button. But you're talking about this rendering stuff earlier, and I was thinking, shit, this sounds like I'm gonna have to learn this stuff and use it for my project, because one of the big things I always face is I have a game that the characters have to be portraits, and I want those portraits to be 3D so that they can animate and move. And so I have to use multiple cameras, throw them up far away, use backgrounds and all this stuff. And it sounds like these rendering options that you've been talking about might be solutions for me.
Yes, they might actually be that. So, for context, people who have not seen Legend of the Stones, the actual character portraits that you can see as you play, showing the characters' expressions and the lighting conditions that they are in as you explore a level. So if you enter a dark dungeon, all the faces are darkened down, and if you are in a bright forest, all the faces are brightened up. And to do that, you have to know what the light level in the scene at that point is.
Yes.
The problem is you cannot get this kind of light information easily, because you either have to find all the light sources around the character, calculate how they would be with regards to light drop off that is not like easily available to a user seeing a light component, And you also have to know the shadowing condition, which means you have to find occlusion for any renderer that would like obscure the light. So if you do find the light, but there is a wall between you and the light, there is absolutely no way to get that kind of information unless the wall also has a collider. But if it's just a renderer, it won't have that, but the light is still blocked. So, and so one of the easiest solutions to do that is to just have a camera rendering at a character. The problem with that is the full camera rendering only a single character.
And if you want to use HDRP, you can't use more than one camera, so you get kind of stuck.
Wait, but the last time I used HDRP was like 2019, and I think I did have two cameras, but post-processing was broken unless you changed like one line that kept writing like to one of the buffers, so it would look like the post-processing broke because it like drew black or something. I don't remember the details.
Yeah, there's definitely one now, because that's what I hit the other day. I was trying to make some effect. I was trying to make occlusion, so character runs behind tree, camera is between you and the tree is between you and the camera, and I was thinking, I'll just make another camera and I'll render the thing over the top, and it's like, nope, you need to use custom render paths and figure that out. So I'm learning all about that stuff right now.
Yeah. Yes, you have to. HDRP is problematic with multiple cameras and having fun with them.
Okay. So in regards to the depth, in regards to the occlusion effect, there are a few things here. First off, Unity has a built-in draw object pass that you can use, and they actually have a great tutorial for that. It's on the URP documentation, I think, that actively shows you how to draw things that are occluded by other things. So I do recommend looking at that. It's basically letting you like pick a material, pick any object that's occluded by this kind of depth with this kind of like culling filter, which culling filter means like you can use the render layer or whatever else we talked about before, and straight up just render with the material. And that's great.
That tutorial, it's great, but there's not parity with HDRP, which is where I got thrown off.
Okay.
Is the passes aren't named the same, so I have to figure out how to transpose that knowledge. But yeah, you're right. If you're using URP, it's a really good tutorial.
Yeah. I'm trying to wonder where HDRP is actually different, because I'd love to figure that out now.
Not to the depth you need for this conversation, no.
Okay.
You know way more about it than I do.
I might look into this later, because now I'm curious. So I'll let you know if I do. And yeah, Andrew is now showing the portraits just here. Yep. There you go. So Andrew, is this 4 full camera renders just for those portraits?
I believe it is. If I'm not mistaken, we can dig into it. We've got our portraits. Yeah.
Okay, so a few things on how you could have optimized this, and none of them are very nice and easy. So first off, Unity does let you manually render meshes. There is no need for you to render an entire camera pass just to render one more object. It's kind of that now. But instead, you could have just called like draw mesh or draw mesh instance or draw mesh instance direct, assuming that you actually have the meshes available. And you should be able to, because you know which character you're actually trying to render. So you just get all the renders and then you call that and you transform the camera metrics for that specific render. Not that great, doable. Second thing you can do is an actual render pass, but which render pipeline are you on? Because it's important that I know.
This is built in for maximum compatibility for asset store sales.
Okay, so a few things here. Everything that we just talked about does not apply to you.
Yeah, I think this is going to be my project uses this in Unity 6 thing, while anything I put on the asset store still has maximum compatibility for the masses in the end. The project I'm showing in particular is agnostic to how you end up drawing the avatars, so there's that. But for my project itself will not be on the asset store. It's just the little bits and pieces, all the systems I build will. And luckily, the actual drawing of this 3D portrait does not require. It doesn't matter what version, how you draw in this, portraits avatars thing that I've built, which is on the asset store.
So I'm trying to remember how you would do this with actually built-in pipeline with optimization in.
You
in this.
don't.
So no. So a few things here. You can still cull down the area that you're actually rendering because that would actually help you a lot. Rendering a full screen texture and then sizing it down for just this portrait is not great. You don't want to render 5 full screens. You just want to render the small slice that you're actually rendering. So you have to pick like a good output resolution and then just set the camera settings to render only that. That would save you a lot of effort. I don't have a good follow-up for this aside from the things that I already mentioned. Granted, this is built-in. At least not off the top of my head.
Yeah.
In regard,
It's
go ahead.
Andrew, it's only built-in, or do you do different versions for ERP and HDRP too?
No, so this is, I think, the clarification on the what I'm showing here is the portrait avatars package, which has examples of both 2D and 3D portraits. It's not itself. So this system is not how to draw 3D avatars in Unity. It is a portrait that can display an avatar. How you draw that is, this is one way, obviously, but you can draw it any way you want. And that is the goal of this. So it doesn't have, I don't think this has a URP version because there's nothing in the portraits themselves that care about URP or HERP. You can just convert the shader to a standard lit shader, I think, if I'm not mistaken, which I could be, but who knows? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And why I'm showing this and not Legend of the Stones is currently I don't have the portraits working in Legends of the Stones, I don't think. So I couldn't show it.
Yeah. So if you were to use the render layers, what you could do is just say, hey, render this set of characters. That said, I'm not sure how the lighting information would interact with it because I think the lights would not get like occluded for that specific object because the actual walls are not included in the render request or that layer alone. So they would still not be occluded by the walls, which is something that you do want because otherwise we get that light leak issue.
That's actually why these are so small here. So these are tiny ass characters. Because if you go close to the wall, they would have an issue. But if they're really small, then they actually don't go through the wall. And you don't know how big they are because you don't see the background. You just see them, and they gather the light still, nonetheless.
Yeah. Another thing you could do, and I'm not sure how this would interact with your current setup. There is a way to sample lights. I have not found a good way to sample lights. It's very convoluted.
Nor I. My only thing, I have a shader that samples, and I think this one does have a URP and HERP variant, if I'm not mistaken. I have a shader that samples the light, it just downsizes the color, and it's not fancy. It gives you an average color rather than giving you the exact directions of every light and that you can mimic in some 3D virtual world, if that makes sense. It was a challenge I spent a couple weeks on actually, and ended up being happy that I got something out of it, but it didn't get what I wanted to get. I wanted to be able to like pass the light information through, sample the light information at a point, pass that to another thing, and recreate it somehow. But that was just above my skill set.
A slight tangent, but I was wondering if any of you've tried the new adaptive probe volumes stuff, APV.
Yeah, so I have tried it. I had problems with it. I kind of quickly gave up on it because I do understand how this works and I do find it quite nice, but I don't need it right now for my current thing. So conceptually, for those listening who don't know what adaptive probe volumes are, Unity has lighting. Lighting in real time is very difficult to calculate, assuming you have a lot of sources of lighting. So an old solution that Unity had since almost a very early version, I think 4, Unity 4.
It was 4, yeah.
Unity had light probes, and light probes were like points in space that would calculate the light level passing through that point, cache it into memory, such that when you load a level, you have the lighting already calculated in advance, and things that would be going around in the scene, instead of trying to calculate the light points, we just find the nearest point or a group of them and interpolate the lights and just use that lighting. It's a very easy optimization to get a rough amount of light shown on the character rather accurately. That said, it was lighting per object and not lighting per pixel as a start. So if you had different light levels from different places on the character, like a red light here and a blue light here, you actually couldn't get like the full lighting effect using probe volumes if there was no probe on the exact point that your character is standing on. So you were incentivized to distribute a lot of probe points around the level, which is not how this solution was meant to be used. It was done in a time where computer processing power was like way weaker, and it was an actual optimization, but now it's like a loss of quality. So you still want to keep like the optimization, but you can't easily distribute all the points. So if you look at the asset store, you'll see a lot of solutions that are trying to distribute a lot of points for you, so you don't have to worry about it manually. But that still misses the point of how this entire thing worked. And so enter adaptive probe volumes, which just say, hey, we know you are buying assets that are distributing points on the map. Here is something that distributes the points for you. And also, this is ready for the next generation of actual rendering, which means this is done on the GPU side, the loading and saving of this light information. And then you can load it in with streaming. So if you have a big world, you can stream in chunks of lighting. And even better, if you have different times of day, this solution offers baking multiple light maps at different light configurations and then loading them in via streaming to replace lighting. So one of the features of adaptive probe volumes is if you have two light levels like day and night, you can actually blend between the values of those two probe volume caches to say, hey, the lighting actually changes, and then you can actually have that. And if you have a level with things that can be spawned into it, but not dynamically, so for example, if you have an Assassin's Creed kind of base or a Tom Clancy's The Division kind of base, and you unlock an upgrade for that base, and that base adds like new lights and a new table or something, and that table will block some of the lighting, you can actually bake probe maps for that base without the table and probe maps with the table and the lighting, and then you can just replace those maps, and then suddenly everything still looks right with high quality lighting, even though you just use two maps that are still relatively optimized. And also the probe volumes come with like an optimization to lighting, so you can actually have a lot more fine detail between so it's basically sampled per pixel now instead of per object, which is like higher quality look. And there is also a mode for per vertex, which is a nice optimization if you're like on the lower end these days. So yeah, that's basically adaptive probe volumes. There are still things that are missing from that, so you cannot bake at runtime, which is something very convoluted to do anyways with how the solution works. So you cannot do like a dynamic base building solution with this just yet. And even though it has like exposure to the sun kind of solution going for it, I have not found a practical way to use this still. There's like the things that Unity did for it, which are nice and great, and like let you have like ambient lighting leaks done in a nice way, but I've not found a way to actually use this yet, so I kind of gave up on it rather quickly because most of the games that I do are dynamic bases. So, and also I try to stick to like lower size assets because I'm not doing anything actually to be distributed, so I don't actually need like the long iteration time just because I have an asset with a 4K texture that keeps wasting my time. So
yeah, I haven't used it yet either. It's mostly because, well, we have, you know, what happens with an optimization like that. You kind of pick it up when you need to. We haven't pre-optimized anything at all, and it seems to be ticking along just fine with the size of level that I've got. So I haven't really bothered.
We tested it a little, but we are planning to do it more with Unity 6 and everything to get all new technologies for as big as things like modular castle and check what we can take with it and how fast we can make the modular castle with that. And then GPU resident lower with the adaptive probe volumes and so on. But we are waiting for 6.
Are you waiting for like GA of 6, or are you
For
waiting
the
for preview?
for the preview.
Oh, okay.
We are not touching beta because we have too many assets, too big
Yeah, of
assets,
course.
and then adapting beta versions and changing everything with them, it takes just too much
Fair
time.
enough.
Sorry, I missed the last few minutes of the stream. I had a exciting tax call.
It's okay.
Yay.
Your rival will
Always
be
the most fun
everything
call of
better.
the year. It was actually a good one though. So
Oh, good.
So, yeah, what else is there that's actually fun to talk about that I have in active memory? So, in regards to multiplayer physics, you mentioned that earlier, and I actually had something to say about that, which is specifically when you spawn an object in multiplayer, it doesn't actually have any like inherently important traits that you actually need to sync in multiplayer. Like the only time that you actually care about a rigid body synced in multiplayer is if you're trying to do calls specifically to detect whether that object is in range of something, or whether this object is actually trying to do a full simulation. But a lot of games don't need the things that would be simulated physically to also actually be synced. Like it's in the minority numbers. Most games have authored movement, which means you directly control how the movement will happen. You don't exactly need to sync the physical traits of that movement, just that the movement happened visually. Because on the other client, that's all that actually really matters. Where this enters like dirty territories with the anticipation, for example, the physics will not actually like do the full simulation required for resimulation. So if you have like an anticipated transform, that transform has a child rigid body, you're screwed because that anticipated transform is saying, hey, I'm actually anticipating that I'm going to continue moving. What is a wall exactly? Never heard of it. And the object is just like going to clip straight into the wall. And if you have a rigid body, that rigid body is going to try and resist, which is both a good effect and a bad effect depending on what your wall is. Because if it's a non-convex collider, it will not know how to push out and it will go straight through. But if it is a convex collider, it'll try to push back in, but the transform will keep fighting it as long as that happens, because the transform system is not aware of physics and it does not call physical resimulations, and everybody needs to understand that, and it's something that a lot of people don't understand in Unity. So yeah.
What are some situations where you would say that you do need to simulate them? Because I can think of very few games where you actually kind of need the network physics. It's like simulated like that.
So it depends on what you actually care about. Like if it's a competitive game, you actually want the physics to be as tight and accurate as possible. So for example, if you're actually looking for a rigid body, if a sphere collider for the head to do a headshot, you actually want it to be in the right place, because if the transform is moving but the physics are not, then it's not going to be accurate. And if the anticipation is like not correct, so you can reach situations that are not great. Like if the client decides that it needs to display a special effect for, like, I don't know, an alarm showing up if an object tries to go into the range of a camera that should be looking for, like, saying, hey, a criminal just entered. You don't want that effect lighting up when in fact the object did not do that. So there are a lot of trade-offs. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, those all seem relatively simple, though.
Yeah,
I guess.
I mean, the complexity is not directly where you want to have the physical thing. It's like you need the physical simulation if you actually intend to use the physical body for the purposes of the gameplay. Yeah. So you can't detect what's not there. So it needs to be there in order for you to detect it. The only times that you care is if you actually need to detect something. The question is, how many things do you actually need to detect on the client? The most simple one is mouse overs. Not every game has mouse overs.
Okay, that's fair. Now here's a question. Going on topic. So, did you see the MOBA stuff that I showed a little bit ago?
I saw a bit of it. I was just around the time that you had like water cubes trying to fight each other.
Okay,
Mm.
cool. So yeah, anyway, just basic characters moving around, some projectiles that go direct from a point to point, like ones that can't miss. And then one of the things I'll be adding sometime very soon is actual projectiles that go about flying forward that you can dodge and all that. So curious, and I'm sure everybody else like here, what would be your strategy for how you would approach adding those projectiles in? Say your game is not opinionated on anything else yet, and you're just adding in projectiles, and you can move around and dodge them. What would be your kind of a strategy for attacking that?
So I have multiple things to say. First off, that I actually heard you talking about mostly straight line projectiles and homing projectiles being problematic and not actually needing the physics. You do still want physics if you have a homing projectile that's supposed to be blocked by a wall. So if you have like a homing missile and you can actually use a wall to block yourself from the missile exploding on you, that's still relatively attractive for the player. That said, you don't need to think as much. So if you spawn a projectile and it is homing, you just need to think its target. And like if there are slight differences in how it paths, it's not the end of the world. Another thing you can do is you can like predict what the path would be, sync the prediction of the path, let it traveling along the prediction, and if the prediction changes, you update the prediction as it's flying. That's a bit more convoluted than I would like to do. Another thing that's like extremely simple is just honestly have an animator on the projectile, even if it has physics. So the one problem of an animator in Unity, disregarding the entire multiplayer aspect of this, is animators don't know that physics exist. They will teleport a transform to the destination under which it is meant to be at the point of animation, which means it can teleport through things. But a lot of projectiles that go through esoteric motion paths typically don't have cases where they would like stop their movement if there is a wall in the way. If I think of League of Legends, the grand majority of projectiles straight up go through walls. So like the grand majority of projectiles with unique movement, to be clear, like lasers or whatever. So I don't see a problem with you just using an animator to move that projectile around, like if it does a wiggle or whatever. I will suggest that regardless of anything, you just don't use physics bodies and you just like program sphere casts or capsule casts or whatever you need. That's going to give you a far better experience because it's like can let you force certain calculations to happen in a certain way, as opposed to just relying on physical events. So there is that kind of trade-off, I guess. But yeah, I would just use like whatever is easiest, I guess.
Okay, yeah, it's it seems about what I was thinking too, and about where I would head. I got one more question. We got to go in just a few minutes, but I have one more technical question that popped up in comments earlier this week, and I've been waiting through the week to ask everybody. And I know I could probably just Google this and look it up, but I felt like it would be more fun to ask everybody on here. User interfaces and canvases. Still using UGUI right now. Multiple canvases or one canvas, or how do you separate and split those out, both for performance and usability? I've heard people say everything should be on one canvas. I hate that idea. It's just not ideal for me. I split things out and I've had zero performance problems ever, but it's been a while since I did like a mobile VR game. So maybe there's a reason to do it there. Yorai, you seem super opinionated on this one with the laughs.
Not
like, stop using UGUI, fucker.
No. Actually, I'm on the opposite camp. I love you. Okay. I actually, it makes me think that I can tie the entire set of stuff that I've talked about into this one conversation. How many minutes you've got? Yeah. So yeah, everybody else should go first.
Yes, one canvas, multiple. How do you split them up?
I use multiple, but I get the distinct feeling that I'm committing some sins by doing it.
I've always used one, and I've been seeing your videos this week, Jason, thinking, oh, you can do more than one. That's true. That's fun. Maybe I should do that from now on. Like that makes a lot of sense. And in drawing them in a different scene entirely, that was a new idea for me too.
It makes it much easier for me. What about you, pal? I know you got to go in just a second, but what do you do for UIs?
I depends. Mostly I go with multiple canvases. If I have to optimize, then I go with one, and then I'm checking each DAO call and each element on the UI, how it works and how it's rendered. If it has graphics lay casted, if it doesn't have graphics lay casted, and so on, going through each UI element and checking everything to have it as fast as possible. But then I'm going also into having atlases, checking which elements of the UI are in each atlas, and so on. Yeah. So then I'm going into optimization mode, and I finish with one canvas with everything atlas, especially. So mostly that it not only is the rendering, but also CPU info for each element, how elements are on CPU, how are on the GPU, and checking everything. Yeah, but that's just normal optimization with everything.
So let me start by saying Andrew got sorry. Andrew, I'm sorry. Will got the correct way to go for. Pavel explained a good way to optimize all of this. Great. So to start with, I just want to explain something for people who don't know how the canvases actually work on Unity's setup for Yugui. You have canvas renderers. The canvas renderers actually exist on the things that you add to a canvas. The canvas is just a scheduler for rendering all of those things. So whenever, and it actually tells them to build their mesh properly. So a single canvas will call a redraw for everything, for every single adjustment that exists within the hierarchy of that mesh. So if you add a new image, entire canvas rebuilds. If you add a change of the text on a text renderer, the entire canvas rebuilds. What you want to do is to minimize the amounts of rebuilds when you're using canvases as a first step of optimization for the CPU. If you actually have materials that can be shared between the render calls of those canvases, that's when, as Pavel said, you have one canvas, and then you just try to find what can be shared between it, and you can actually separate for that, but the canvas already does some of this for you. Not that big a deal. Now, the best way to do things is to separate the canvases such that if there is something that always updates, and there is another thing that always updates, they should be in the same canvas, because that canvas is already screwed to always update. If there are things that never update, they want to be in a separate canvas, because they're never going to update. There is no need to rebuild them. And something that is very nice, actually, in regards to Unity in the latest versions, is that Yugui can finally have shaders in shader graph. This is something that was missing for so many years, because because Unity did not implement a single line that actually would have made a shader from shader graph work. I've been screaming internally for this until it's completed, so I'm very happy. And there's actually a YouTube video. Sorry. Come back to us. So now there are actually multiple videos popping up on YouTube of people actually using Yugui shader graph, and I love that. There's actually, I literally saw today a shining line effect that passes on buttons as a shader graph effect. Good stuff.
Is that the one? I saw that yesterday.
I'm not sure who actually made the video. I'm sorry about that. So that's a good thing to have. Now, if you want to do special animated effects, that's the actual way to do that. You don't want to rebuild meshes in the canvas. If you have a manual shader rendering the effect, first off, you can have the effect be more dynamic. Secondly, it's actually doing the work on the GPU, which is what you want. So having multiple canvases split off by order of updating, the frequency of updating, and having the effects be mostly done on the GPU side is the best way to use canvases. Now, what scene they come from does not matter, and you actually have a field in a canvas to say what order it is. This will disregard the scene order, so you can still have a layout pop-up in a different scene that you can just load in with all the things that you need. And I think this is the best way to offer it, as Jason, as you showed in your video, which is you have a scene per element, per big set of elements of a canvas that you want to have. So if you have like a combat UI, pop-ups UI, an inventory management UI, you have them all separate. And a thing I'm going to add on that is that you can actually have editor-only objects in Unity. If you have like the tags and layers.
The editor-only tag?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can mark an object to be an editor-only thing, and you can actually have a script that says, if this is the active scene, keep it. If it's not the active scene, remove it. And that can be actually a dummy mockable object for the things that the UI that you're working on needs, so that you can actually check every menu in isolation. And if it's the main game, it won't load any of these mock objects, so you can actually have like the perfect experience of working with your UI in isolation without needing like custom hacker real code or like full player singletons that access like, you know, the inventory, the combat, the pop-ups and everything, just because you want to check like the one pop-up menu. So it's like the best way to offer things in regards to working with Unity. One more thing that I'm going to add on with regards to render layers and hackery is that you can actually set a sorting layer for a canvas. And canvases are not renderers. They actually extend from behavior, which means you can't actually call render on them, which is infuriating. But what you can do is actually have a render pass right now that says, hey, draw this sorting layer only. And this sorting layer happens to only have a canvas. So now you can control where your canvases render on a render layer level. You can actually draw objects on top of the canvas. And you can actually like do all those certain 3D visuals with a single scene, with a single camera. That works great. I love like the amount of flexibility that render layers, sorting layers, and render passes give me, together with the UGUI shader graph. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, it's good to hear that I was doing the right thing. That was my basis was always on some talk I saw at Unite, I think in 2016, where they talked about exactly that, separating things out based on when they're updated. So things that are updated commonly together, go together, and other stuff in a separate one. And then obviously you can optimize it. You got a little bit more though?
Yeah. So Unite 2017 and Unite 2018 both have a person coming over on stage and talking about this. He splits gold with literally anything that he says. You should go watch those presentations. I don't remember the exact links for those, but they are on YouTube. He talks a lot about how to optimize a lot of things. One of the biggest red flags that you have in regards to using canvases in Unity is the layout components, specifically like the horizontal layout and vertical layout.
The grid layout and...
Yeah, the grid layout is a disaster regardless of the orders. So when you use those, this is basically the worst case scenario for Unity, because anything that changes triggers a full rebuild of the canvas. And the reason those components exist at all is because they have... Unity does not know when you change your objects. You basically have third-party code. That third-party code is manipulating things in the ether, and Unity says, oh, hell, something just changes. What do? We don't know what changes. We don't know when the changes are coming, when they will stop. We have to rebuild for every single attempt. Now, an optimization they did is they marked the UI for rebuild, and eventually they rebuild it. You actually have a method you can call to immediately rebuild it. Sometimes this is necessary if you're trying to like refit a UI element that's containing another UI element, but the contained element changed its size. I'm not going to get into that, though, because I know, Powell, you have to go. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to talk more, do like a full segment or episode on UI stuff. I think this is interesting. And it's like, it's one of the things that every game has, or almost every game has and needs. So I think it's useful for all of us. Powell, you said you got to go, but I wanted to quickly share the link. You've got a couple deals coming up on the flash sales. It looks like they've got the info about the upcoming deals coming out now. It's the 17th. For some reason, I thought it was the 16th. I get my dates all mixed up. Yeah, this looks cool.
Yeah,
what are the two things here?
Mountain environment, and I think the best flash deal that we could have given, an environment bundle that has most of our assets in it, will be on flash deal.
Oh, wow. And then the flash deals, do you know what the percentage is? Did they tell you?
70% off. It says
is it 70? Okay.
Yeah, it says at the very, very top of the window.
Yeah.
In the
It's 70,
okay,
and
there,
then I
70,
think it goes to 50. Yeah.
Nice. So I'll drop a link for that in the chat. We can go check it out. That's a good deal on that bundle. I'm gonna, like I said, try putting some of your stuff back in. I just need to be not a shitty artist. I'm so bad at level design. I just I'd love to spend like a couple hours just with a level designer putting stuff together that looked nice. Well, anyway, so yeah, go check that out if you haven't. And we're gonna get going. Other things, if you haven't seen Andrew's projectile pack yet, just came out today, or is it yesterday?
Yesterday
Today?
morning.
Yesterday morning.
27 hours ago.
Go check it out. There's a good trailer, shows all of the stuff in there, show you how to do different types of projectiles, homing projectiles, splitting ones. It looked like all kinds of crazy cool stuff, and sticky bombs. Right?
Bombs are available too. You can do anything you want with them.
Make sure you check that out. And is the $20 sale still live?
I think that's gone.
Did it end this morning?
Yeah.
No. There's still some things on there.
It is.
It might be in is it still? What does it say?
Yeah, it's still on. It's still on.
It's still on. It might be up for another day or two.
Okay.
Which is good because I keep forgetting. I need to grab the super text mesh and play
I
around with it.
last night.
Yeah, I keep adding it to cart, and then I've got like $10,000 worth of stuff in my cart. So I'm like, oh wait, hold on. And then I get distracted and I forget. Yeah, go check that out. And if you haven't signed up for the multiplayer mastery course, you can check that out in the link too. I got the code for the MOBA stuff, and then we go through a racing game and an extraction game with all the lessons there. And we have live calls on Mondays and Thursdays. So next Monday we'll have our next call. Other than that, I think we're out of things to share. Go check out Unity 6 and get ready for the call next week. Oh, and Pal's got a link. I'm going to drop it in chat for the profiling UI stuff. So UI canvases. Go check that out as well. And then come back and join us again next. Oh, wait, hold on. There's one other thing I missed. Andrew.
Oh, yeah. That's not for 3 weeks.
Oh, okay. You've got a big pack coming in the sale too.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, for now, just go grab Andrew's $20 pack.
Yeah.
That's nice and cheap. That's like a 90% discount.
If you want the big character pack, then that's coming in 23 days, which is a long time to forget about it.
It certainly is. We'll talk about it later, though, I'm sure. All right. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next week, and we're going to head out as soon as I find the button.